Hi, hello. Let's discuss screen-based controls. Introduction. Screen-based controls, often simply called controls and sometimes called widgets, are the elements of screen that constitute its body. By definition, the graphic object that represent the properties or operations of other objects. A control may permit the entry or selection of a particular value, permit the changing or editing of a particular value, display only a particular piece of text, value, or graphic, cause a command to be performed, possess a contextual pop-up window. Identify the characteristics and capabilities of the various screen-based controls, including buttons, text entry, read-only controls, selection controls, combination entry or selection controls, specialized operable controls, web controls. We have to select the proper controls for the user and task. Let's discuss the operable controls now. Operable controls are those that permit the entry, selection, changing or editing of a particular value or cause a command to be performed. Classes include buttons, text entry, read only, selection, combination entry selection, and other specialized controls. First we discuss buttons. The description: a square or rectangular shaped control with a label inside that indicates action to be accomplished. The label may consist of text, graphics, or both. The purpose of button: to start actions, to change properties, to display a pop-up menu. The advantages of buttons: always visible, reminding one of the choices available, and it is convenient, can be logically organized in the work area, can provide meaningful description of the actions that will be performed, larger size generally provides faster selection target, can possess a 3D appearance, adds an aesthetically pleasing style to the screen, provides visual feedback through button movement when activated, may permit use of keyboard equivalents and accelerators, faster than using two-step menu bar pull down sequence. The disadvantages of buttons: consumes a screen space, size limits the number that may be displayed, requires looking away from main working area to activate, requires moving the pointer to select. Proper usage of buttons are used for frequently used actions that are specific to a window: to cause something to happen immediately, to display another window, to display a menu of options, to set a mode or property value. A button comes in three styles. The first resembles the control commonly found on electrical or mechanical devices and is sometimes called a push button. These are most often rectangular, with text that indicates action to be taken when they are selected or pressed. These buttons are usually placed within a window, and activating them causes the action or command described on them to be performed immediately. This kind of button may take a variety of forms, some of which are illustrated in the figure below. They are often referred to as command buttons. The second style is a square or rectangular in shape with an icon or graphic inside. It may have an associated label. This kind of button is illustrated in the figure below here. The label may be permanently affixed to the screen within the button, adjacent to it, or only appear when the pointer is moved to the button, called tooltip. These buttons may appear singly or be placed in groupings commonly called button bars or toolbars. We will refer to them as toolbars in this text. They are most frequently used to quickly access commands, many of which are normally accessed through the main bar, or to initiate other actions or functions. These button groupings are usually placed at the screen's top or side. They are usually relocatable and removable by the user. The third style is square or rectangular in shape with a symbol inscribed inside, as illustrated in the figure below. The symbol, when learned, identifies the button and the action to be performed when the button is selected. These buttons, specific to a platform or provided by it, are located in the borders of windows and are used to do such things as obtaining a system menu or resizing a window. They have already been described in more detail in step 5. Select the proper kinds of windows, and will not be addressed in this step. Buttons, command button advantages. An advantage of a command button is that it is always visible, providing a reminder of its existence. Command buttons are conveniently and logically located in the work area and can be inscribed with meaningful descriptions of what they do. Their ability to assume a fairly large size speed selection and their three-dimensional appearance is aesthetically pleasing. Buttons can also provide meaningful visual feedback through the movement of the button when activated. Their activation is much easier and faster than using two-step menu bar or full down sequence. Command button are disadvantages. Among the disadvantages of command buttons is their large size, which consumes considerable screen space and limits the number that can be displayed. Toolbar advantages. Advantages of a toolbar buttons include their continuous visibility and ease and speed of use. They also individually consume a relatively small amount of space. Toolbar disadvantages. Disadvantages include their location being away from the main work area and their small size, which slows down selection. Another disadvantage is that when a large number of buttons are grouped in a bar, they consume a great deal of screen space and they can easily create the screen clutter. In circumstances where they do not possess a label, the necessity of learning and remembering what they are used for can also cause problems. Proper usage of buttons. Buttons are best for frequently used actions in a window. They can be used to cause actions to occur immediately, such as saving a document, quitting a system, or deleting text. They can be used to display a menu of options, such as colors or fonts. Windows calls buttons that leads to a menu button. Buttons can also be used to display other secondary windows or dialog boxes, and to expand the dialog or invoke dialog features. Windows calls a button that expands the dialog an unfolding button. Buttons may also be used to reflect a mode or property value setting similarly to the use of radio buttons or checkboxes. In some kinds of Windows, command buttons may be the only command method available to the user. Command buttons. Guidelines. There are some guidelines given. Usage. For Windows with menu bar, used to provide fast access to frequently used or critical commands. For Windows without a menu bar, used to provide access to all necessary commands. For fast access to commands contained in a menu bar, especially those frequently used or critical, also provide access by command buttons. Buttons must also provide for situations where command is not available through the menu bar. For Windows without menu bars, buttons must be provided to provide access to the all window commands. Command buttons. For fast access to commands contained in menu bar, especially those frequently used or critical, also provide access by command buttons. Buttons must also be provided for situations where a command is not available through the menu bar. For Windows without menu bar, buttons must be provided to provide access to all window commands. Structure. Provide a rectangular shape with a label inscribed within it. Give the button a raised appearance. Maintain consistency in style throughout an application. Now let's discuss labels. Labels of buttons. Use standard button labels when available. Provide meaningful description of the actions that will be performed. Use single word labels whenever possible. Use 2-3 words for clarity if necessary. Use mixed case letters with first letter of each significant label word capitalized. Display labels in the regular system font in the same size font. Do not number labels. Center the label within the button borders, leaving at least 2 pixels between the text and the button border. Provide consistency in button labeling across all screens. Labels. Okay, let's discuss in detail. Button labels should be clearly spelled out with meaningful description of the actions they will cause to be performed. Choices should be composed of mixed case single words. Multiple words are preferred, however, to single words lacking clarity in their intent. If multiple word labels are used, capitalize the first letter of each word. Headline style. Use the same size and style of font in all buttons. The regular system font is preferred. Never change the font style or size within buttons. These kinds of changes can be very distracting to the viewer. Center each label within the button borders, leaving at least 2 pixels between the text and the border. Let's discuss labels again. Common button functions should have standard names and uses. Okay. Microsoft Windows, for example, provides these standard names and definitions. OK is one button. That's the label. Okay. Any changed information in the window is accepted and the window is closed. There is something called cancel button with cancel label. Closes window without implementing unsubmitted changes. Reset. There is one more button called reset. Resets defaults and cancels any changed information that has not been submitted. Apply. Any changed information in the window is accepted and again displayed in the window that remains open. Close closes the window. Help opens online help. Always follow all platform presentation and usage guidelines for standard button functions. Now let's discuss the size of button. Provide as large a button as feasible. Maintain consistent button heights and width. Okay, there is some exception. Buttons containing excessively long labels may be wider. Okay, size of a button. Provide as large a button as possible, consistent with Fitts law. Buttons must at minimum be wide enough to accommodate the longest label. Leave at least 2 pixels between labels and button borders. Command buttons minimum height should be 25 pixels. Create, however, standard equal sized button encompassing the majority of system functions when a button's label will not fit within the standard size. Expand the button size to achieve a proper label fit. Never reduce the font size of some labels to create equal sized button. In this case, buttons of different width are preferable. Also, do not create an unnecessarily wide buttons for aesthetic balance purposes. As illustrated by the color palette button in figure below, the perceptual model we possess in our memory for a button will be lost. This is the button. Okay, much too large color palette button. It's the wrong choice. Okay, improper one. This is the proper one. Color palette is the size of the color palette is very small. Now let's discuss the number within the button. Restrict the number of buttons on a window to 6 or fewer. The maximum number of buttons on a window must reflect a balance between effectiveness, real estate efficiency, and operational simplicity. Having no more than 6 buttons per window or dialog box seems appropriately balance these issues. If an extra button or 2 is necessary and space is available, they may be included. Location and layout of buttons. Maintain consistency in button location between windows. Never simply fit buttons in available space. If buttons are for exiting the dialog, position them centered and aligned horizontally at the bottom. If buttons are used for invoking a dialog feature or expanding the dialog, position them centered and aligned vertically on the right side. If a button has a contingent relationship to another control, position it adjacent to the related control. If a button has contingent relationship to a group of controls, position it at the bottom or to right of related controls. If due to space constraint, exiting and expanding invoking feature buttons must be placed together. If at the bottom, place exiting buttons to the right, separating the groupings by 1 button's width. If along the right side, place exiting buttons at the bottom, separating the groupings by buttons height. For exiting and expanding invoking feature buttons, do not align with other screen controls present displayed within a line bar. Okay, it should not be done. Provide equal and adequate spacing between adjacent buttons. Provide adequate spacing between buttons and the screen body controls. Organization of buttons. Organize standard buttons in the manner recommended by the platform being used. For other buttons, organize them in common and customary grouping schemes. For buttons ordered left to right, place those for most frequent actions to the left. For buttons ordered top to bottom, place those for most frequent actions at the top. Keep related buttons grouped together. Separate potentially destructive buttons from frequently chosen selections. Buttons found on more than one window should be consistently positioned. The order should never change. For mutually exclusive actions, use 2 buttons. Do not dynamically change the text. Thank you for watching.